Hi, welcome to North of 48. This episode's entitled Miles for Thousands. Cameron and Charity West are walking across Canada to bring awareness to the Indigenous men, women, and children who have gone missing. This is their interview. They're currently in Saskatchewan, having left Alberta, on their way to St. John's. They're trying to bring awareness to these people who have gone missing, either through the Highway of Tears or in other ways. Charity's son is now 20. His dad went missing 11 years ago. If you can help support these people, I suggest you do so. It's a very important subject, topic, and story. Thank you. We begin after watching an episode of Taken from the APTN network, which the link will be in the show notes. Hi, Charity and Cameron. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing good.
Well, I'm going to put the link in for the video we just seen so people can watch it before the podcast. That was very powerful. And for people in the audience, Charity is Diane Parent's niece, and Diane was on a podcast with myself and Roricky on residential schools, which was also quite powerful. And I did not know that this was a thing, missing men. I knew about the women, but I didn't know. How come I don't know this? How come I don't know these boys and these men are missing?
It's the lack of media coverage, and honestly, there's no investigations, there's no media coverage. As soon as, if you look at any of our Indigenous people, when they are gone missing or murdered or anything like that, the first couple lines in the published whatever version of it is lifestyle or drugs or something like that, right? Like, my son's dad wasn't into any drugs, and he would go out like every normal person in their early adult would go out. Like, you go out with your friends on the weekends every once in a while, and he would go out even less than that because he came from up north. But that's like, he got a ground search, he got a bit more media coverage, but it's still not enough. Like, there's never, like, you look at people, some of the other people that are non-Indigenous, they still get coverage in the media. Years and years later, we still hear about Madison Scott, as we should, but we should also hear about our missing and murdered Indigenous people. And that's why it was so easy to go ahead and just jump in out of faith and do this. Is just for that very reason, is like, yes, let's just do it. Like, and we had no idea how we were going to do it. We're just going to do it. And we just want the media coverage. But I have some statistics here if you want to hear them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do.
So,
yeah. Hit me.
So, okay.
Sorry. Go ahead, Charity.
Okay. So, they've done so I have an article here, and it is equity education. It could be. I don't know how to say it. But anyways,
it's probably French.
Yeah. And I'm part Perron, so oh no. So between 1980 and 2012, the Stats Canada documented 745 Indigenous female homicide victims, and 1,750 Indigenous male homicide victims. So that's over double what we're losing for our women. Like, our women need the coverage as well, but what about our men? Right?
That's a very good point. This is also something that's happening in the United States as well. This is not the first time. Once I started digging into it. Okay, so let's start. What are you doing? You're walking across Canada. What is wrong with you?
I guess I just married the right crazy.
Boy, didn't you?
Okay, let's do that.
Good job, Cameron. Yeah. Did you marry up, or did she? I'm sorry.
When I just made a post about this of my mom and my mom passed, and how the conversation went. If I would tell her that I was going to do this, she'd be like, who the raised you, eh? And she'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah, my family doesn't even ask me if I'm crazy anymore.
No?
They're just like, no, they're just like,
you guys up and went and left, like you got mortgage payments and stuff like that, right? And you said, okay, we're gonna go to St. John's. Is that where you're going?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's scary in itself. How's that? How are things going for you then? Like, also, I have to thank you for delaying your trip another day, because you've been walking and you delayed so you could be here with us fine people tonight. So I appreciate that.
We have no problem delaying our trip, because this is no race, right?
Yeah,
We're not. The sole purpose of this walk is media coverage. So any media coverage we can get, we're going to stop and we're going to do that. So how things are going, it gets tough, but like I said, everything that we tried to do and get in line before we decided to make this big leap of faith, everything just kept falling through. And then we were like, okay, well, let's do this. And he asked me, and I'm just like, well, we're not going to get any younger. We're not going to get any younger. Both of our sons are in college, so they don't.
Your son just turned 20. The one we seen on the video. Today
is his 20th birthday, so that marks 11 years that his dad's been missing.
Right.
Yeah, so it's his birthdays are always bittersweet. So we've always kind of, ever since that, we've always been like, always try to beef it up a little bit more, because it's like, yeah.
Is he he must be in, I don't know, what is he doing? Is he going to come out for a walk with you, or what's
hopefully after he's done his semester here, he will. I told him he could come and walk us in because we're thinking of the last bit of our walk, because we ended up starting in Alberta, right?
Right.
And so we kind of bypassed BC. So yeah, we're still discussing discussing walking the Highway of Tears home.
Yeah, I was talking to my sister about that the night before, and it's like, we didn't start in BC. Like, we could go to Prince Rupert and then walk to Prince George, just to finalize it, because the Highway of Tears is like, there's like so much that happened on there. It's like, even Whoopi Goldberg was talking about it on The View. Like, she did a little segment on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, it's, unfortunately, BC is the number, like, it has the highest rate of missing adults Canada-wide, and then Manitoba is right next, right? Like, these are just some staggering statistics, and this is all across, like, so what Indigenous people would call it would be Turtle Island, right?
Right,
so
Turtle Island.
Yeah, all of North America, and that's the creation story.
Mm-hmm.
So like, this is it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or if you're in the US, it's right across the continent, right?
It is,
like, like, it's the Indigenous population it's a continuing genocide. It's just not stopping, and there's no coverage. Like, the fact that we have to fight this hard for the Canadian government to consider what it's like. A couple days, like, or a couple weeks ago, they members of Parliament actually considered it. What was it? We were just looking at it, but it's I think they considered it a ongoing epidemic. I feel like I need to look this up, or I don't know. But yeah.
In the meantime, while you look it up, so you guys, Cameron, you guys started in Alberta, and where are you now?
We're in Regina, and before we got here, we were in Moose Jaw, and we needed to make it from Moose Jaw to Regina in a day. So I basically ran the whole time. I did over 30 kilometers, and because my wife had to get some rest too. She had some blisters that were ongoing, and she had some emails.
And he doesn't like doing emails. He doesn't like doing emails because that's the main thing is we're not asking individuals for donations. We're reaching out to our communities and the communities that have lost.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking to them because we really don't want to overshadow this with like, give me money, right? Like we don't need that. So, okay, so I found it. So National Emergency Declaration on Violence Against Indigenous Women. And that was published by CBC May 2nd, 2023.
Right. And the Liberal government did this, or?
Yeah, it's right here. The MPs call for a national declaration on violence against women. Our MPs call for a national emergency declaration on violence against women, Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people. And that's the House of Commons. Right, adopted motion unanimously.
So it pays to vote harder, right? We tend to get. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. The sad part about it is the only time that they really care about the Indigenous populations is during elections. This is when we get all this reconciliation and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But other than that, when it comes to media coverage, like it's appalling. Like I was looking, my cousin Carmelita was of Takla Nation was brutally murdered in Quesnel, and like it was her family that kept pushing for it and making sure that something happened, right? So they tracked her ATM cards and they found it being used at this hotel because they're like, she's been changing her life around, right? Like she was actually actively changing her life around and like working hard to come out of a dark place. And yeah, so her family was on the police and the RCMP and they were on everything trying to figure this out. And she was brutally murdered. And when they found her, the guy that murdered her was defamation to body, trying to get rid of it right out of a hotel room.
Oh my!
So like, and then when you go and look at the publications on it, like, I think it was CBC and CTV, like just the photos they used, they got like a mugshot from when she was at her worst, and they put that right there on top of it, like just stuff like that. Like there's no honor. Like how?
So you have a young woman who's trying to change her life around, and she gets murdered. And so I'm gonna. Well, I hope it's not a racist question, but do you think that Indigenous people with the law system are treated different than say, the European settlers? You do.
Yes, I am like not only the law system, like there is systemic racism in all forms. Like even like I get scared to go to the emergency. When I went to the emergency during COVID, because I was getting like, how they had COVID hands and toes for babies.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the hospital during COVID. First of all, they shamed me for walking in there, like the Prince George Hospital. They shamed me. They're like, you came in here for a rash during a pandemic? Like, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And I was like, called my mom. I'm like, pick me up right now. I was like, I am not impressed. I was like, if they did this to my kids, like, this is not okay. And so as soon as I was like, I am being they're discriminating against me. And as soon as they heard that key word, then all of a sudden they're like, no, we're going to deal with you. And do you want to know what they did? They did not do a COVID test. They gave me antidepressants, and then they sent me home. And then I tested positive for COVID like a few days later when I went to, So like just stuff like that. Like they have absolutely, like, it's scary. It's scary. It's scary as an Indigenous person in this country. Like,
it is. And plus there's been so many things coming out of the hospital, especially Winnipeg, and about Indigenous people and about the way they were being treated as well. So, I can't apologize for everybody, but I'm sorry to hear it.
Like it's, and it's like even one of their family from St. Dene, Lindsay Izoni, she was brought into the holding cells in Prince George. Like She was brought into the holding cells.
Right.
And the only reason that we know this is because her brother, he was in the cell right beside her. They were intoxicated, right?
Right.
But she was asking for help, and he heard his sister continuously asking for help. And I'm not okay. I need to go to the doctor. I'm not okay. I need to go to the doctor. She died. Like stuff like that. Like there was like, yeah, like she was
The heck.
like,
You
yeah,
know,
no, like they took so long to get her medical care that she did not survive.
I am so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and this is sorry.
Well, I was just going to say everybody should get like a good treatment period, and
yeah,
no matter their race or ethnicity, and especially First Nations people, they have been hard done by. The water stuff just amazes me. I think that was north of Winnipeg, where they're still having a hard time getting clean drinking water, and it's something I don't understand, right? And that's why I thank you for coming on, and why can't we do that? We can do a lot of, we can build a friggin' railroad. Well, sorry, we didn't build it, the Asians built it, I know that, but why can't we get this fixed?
Yeah, coming to the clean water, like my reserve.
Yeah, like
they can't drink out of the tap.
Where's your reserve?
It's Fort Babine.
Fort Babine, and you don't have clean drinking water.
No.
We're in Canada. I mean, like there's clean drink. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, they supply bottled water to the community. You can't even rinse your potatoes or anything with the water.
Son of my gun.
Yeah, I know, and that's been like that. I think the first time I went to Babine, I was quite young, and it's been like that ever since I could remember. I remember going in, I was like just gonna rinse it because I didn't think it was that bad, right? Or just like I never grew up in Babine, and then my friend's mom's like, no. She's like, dump that right away, and then she washed it really good in like a bottled water before she would cook it. And the cancer rates around there are just insane. Like,
so
yeah, no.
The treatment, perhaps by the government or about people and the injustices through the years, and now we have a situation where we have not only women but men and boys.
It's always been men and boys as well. Like you could see from the statistics there that it's been double what we're losing in women.
Right.
But it's just it's like, I guess, how can you say? I guess it's more of a cultural thing where we want to make sure our women are respected.
Right.
And the men are always they're always worried about protecting the women, right?
Right.
And
yes, we are. Yeah. We respect our women with a passion, right, honey? We always do. But yeah, it's probably it's also a better media story. A woman's gone missing, and that with the heartstrings. So I get that. Has there been any leads from your significant other, the father of your child? Has there been any sightings? What do you suspect happened, or can you tell? And anything personal, be careful.
It's hard to say because like you got all these, like that's the toughest part, to be honest. Like that is the toughest part, is you have all these scenarios running through your head. You have all these people saying things. And like the one thing that everybody seems to say anytime somebody goes missing from Prince George, which as soon as I hear this, I feel like, oh my God, I don't think this person's alive anymore, because that's like, yeah, like, that's just like how I feel. It's just, and because, but anyways, what first thing they say is, oh, we've seen them in Vancouver. And then as soon as I hear that, I feel like they're not alive. Like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe from Norway has a question. Is there evidence that these murders are coordinated by multiple people or persons, or are these,
I think it's because we're easy targets, because they know they're not gonna get the investigations, or there's gonna be no investigation, there's gonna be no publicity. They're just gonna, like, if you look at the case of Cindy Gladue, that stands out.
Yes.
So like, they like you know about this one, right?
Right, I do, yeah.
Like there was so many like errors in the justice system. The judge messed up so bad. Like he allowed her past sexual history into court, which had absolutely nothing to do with the case.
That's correct.
And then the like consent. We know consent is an ongoing thing, right? You can't just be like, okay, I consent, and then all of a sudden somebody's choking you and, oh, I got consent. No, that's not consent. Consent's an ongoing conversation throughout an interaction, right? And the fact that during the whole court case, they didn't even say her name. They did not say Cindy Gladue. They said the prostitute. Like that's not okay.
And the judge allowed that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's crap. That's bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you. I'm like, what am I allowed to say here?
Within reason, if it calls for it, go ahead.
Yeah, but there's so many things like that. And just like I said, like, look at Chelsea Poorman. Like that is horrific. Like her dad went down he left Saskatchewan because this happened in Vancouver, BC, right?
Right.
And it took them a ridiculous amount of time to put her as a vulnerable person, given her her arm was always at a 90-degree angle because of an accident. She had rods in her legs. Like it takes her quite a while to get from one place to another. Right. And it still took them like way too long just to classify her as a vulnerable person, so that way her case can get more attention. And then the cops went and told everybody that they'd done these surveillance, or went and talked to all the businesses and got the surveillance footage and everything. And then her father came down from Saskatchewan to go and help with the search. And he went and talked to these business owners. He's like, no, nobody asked us. No police asked us for any surveillance footage. Like this is his own investigation after the fact.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was found in a prominent neighborhood in the backyard and in a vacant house. Her body disposed of just like that. And I think, it's unsolved. They said it was, I was just looking at it. It's really horrific though. Like there's no justice there.
Right.
There's absolutely no justice. Like her mother's pleading for these people in that area to check their yards. Maybe there's something, because they said they didn't suspect foul play or something along those lines. And she's missing fingers. Her skull's bashed in, like stuff like that. Like it sounds, like there's so many cases, and it's like, it's multiple. It's one after another.
Right.
And we literally have to be the advocates here.
Right.
Like,
and that's, so I know you're like trying to bring media attention to the men and boys, but it's also the women are prominent as well. It's the whole demographic, like all Indigenous people, men, boys, and children. Like if you look at what's going on in Winnipeg right now, that is horrific. Like if I agree. Can you explain that with, okay. Are we talking about the hospitals, or are we talking
about the landfill?
The landfill.
Oh,
the cops know that there are at least
two bodies
in there. They found one, right. And they that there are two there, and they stated this, but it is.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Do you want to hear it? I guess we could.
Two murdered Indigenous women. So. The study indicates it could take up to 3 years and cost as much as $184 million. Today, Indigenous leaders said it must be done.
If a search is not carried out, it will demonstrate to all First Nations across Canada that this government condones the despairing act of disposing of First Nation women in landfills.
Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are suspected victims of an alleged serial killer, and Winnipeg police said in December that they believe their bodies are in this landfill. Here with me now is Cambria Harris, the daughter of Morgan Harris.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
and they don't want to put the money up to find this.
No, and like, can you imagine? Like, remember when those two teenagers went wild, and then they done the killing spree and then the suicide, and
yes.
then
I do, and they came from Manitoba too, right?
I can't remember.
I think that's what they're found.
I think that's where
Oh, that's where they were found. Yeah, they came up.
yeah, and that's like
Vancouver.
that's where they
Yeah.
killed themselves, right?
Right.
But
There's
yeah.
so many of these stories.
Yeah, and that had so much coverage. And the
It
only
did.
difference there was so much coverage. The only difference there and the only reason that they had to run is because their victims were not Native. They were not Indigenous people.
Right. Right. And yet the media coverage was these two people are on the run, fugitives, and we found a canoe or something like that. And
Yeah, like there was like people along the way, like there was a nationwide search for that. And then
That's right.
now they can't even take the time to they're saying that that's going to be infeasible. And if you look at residential school and all these
yes,
mass graves, like
yes,
literally if what was her name? One of the victims' daughters, Cambria Harris. Her mom is one of the victims there. Morgan Harris is her mom.
right.
So she's in that landfill, right? So
Oh,
it's one of the
God.
bodies that needs to be recovered.
Right.
And like one of her statements in that broadcast there just like hit home for me so hard. It's like by not conducting the search, they're essentially doing another an unmarked mass grave like they did with the residential school.
That is
like
true.
it's inequality all across. So what we're walking for is missing murdered Indigenous peoples.
Right.
So that's all encompassing men, women, and children.
We actually have somebody in the community who works with who's working with Indigenous band to look at bodies in Minnesota, doing LiDAR and radar work on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Too as well. So once again, I'm going to stress this is not just Canada. This is also the United States, right? So,
no, and that's the thing is like Canada is a concept that was created long after colonization, right? So
are you putting down our British overlords or our colonialism?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying it's a concept.
Hey, we got a new king now.
Yeah, we do. But originally this is Turtle Island, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, this is Turtle Island. So like our families migrated before that line was created. So
yeah.
No,
100%. And so to get back to what you're doing, so you're doing this walk. You've already got over 1,000 kilometers in, is it? Or
maybe about altogether, maybe about 500.
Yeah, because we started in Siksika.
Siksika.
Yeah, Siksika. Okay. So that's why we feel like we need to go back and do something in BC. But I'm still thinking we need to go back and deal with bills too at some point.
Well, walk as long as you can. Have you timed this out when you would reach Fort St. John? By the way,
St. John's. St. John's, we are thinking that
St. John's, sorry.
Initially we were anticipating like August.
Okay.
But now that we're realizing that we can't, like if we get an interview or if we have something set up, then we need to take that we're gonna push it out, right? Yeah, we might push it out a bit longer. And so I do have
we need to get media attention on what you're doing here and the project itself. Like after talking to you and I researched it and I went, there is so much I did not know. So I really appreciate it. Are there any questions from the audience? Pardon me?
Sorry, I do have like a little bit
well, I'm not ending it. I was just seeing if somebody wants to ask questions. So
sorry.
Or do an opinion.
Yeah, no questions.
Okay.
Please.
Well, you go ahead then. Everybody's shy today. So
okay.
Diane had lots of questions.
Okay, so I guess this is something I just read up because it's so far too often when our people are missing and go missing, we're an afterthought. In today's society, we make the news once and then we're an afterthought. Like that's just how things seem to go. sadly, Indigenous victims don't sell on media. So media is really letting us down. Like, it just doesn't sell.
Yeah.
And when they do show up on media, it's like the first things in the first couple paragraphs, like I said, I just want to reiterate, they just go high risk lifestyle, our homelessness, or poverty. Do you think anybody wants to actually, like, anybody chooses to be born into poverty? That is not a choice. Like, that is not a choice at all. And for some reason, that seems to be adequate enough for the people of Canada to devalue our life. Like, apparently we're not as human as everybody else, and that is not okay. Like, that is not okay. We're not expendable, and we don't deserve to be dumped in landfills and not retrieved, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, and like like it's just,
I agree, Charity. Those are a good set of words there.
What needs to happen is our country needs to blur the line of race on all things, and everybody just needs some equality. Like, apparently Canada's about multiculturalism and all this stuff, and like we have this great freedom, but we have no, and there's so much inequality right now, and it's unfortunately it's all targeted towards the Indigenous populations. And my problem is like, if we don't fix this, that doesn't help Canada at all. Like, so how is that okay? How is that okay for our government? Because the only time that when we help our most vulnerable population, that those benefits trickle into all populations and all demographics across Canada, right?
Right.
This, like, if we actually put some effort into solving these issues and do some toolkits, and like, we have ground people, we have organizations across the country to make sure that this is not happening, and we have people watching out.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. Harsh has a question, and it's one that I think we've touched upon before, like reparation or reconciliation. And
yeah. So thanks, guys. Thanks for informative session. So you mentioned reconciliation, right, during election period, Canadian government, or like maybe let's say the politicians, they go through reconciliation piece and stuff. So I know, like in US, after slavery was abolished or whatever, there was like a reparation that was supposed to be given to folks, right? Did something similar happen in Canada? And what does the reconciliation actually mean? Is it like they just ask for forgiveness and is that it? Or is there anything like tangible attached to it?
Charity, if you say you got a GST check, that's not right. Okay.
Okay, so as far as I know, reconciliation to Canada or to our government means they say they're sorry and then they feel better. And that's unfortunate. They're like, even with the Highway of Tears, they had this big inquiry, and they've barely touched on any of the action items. Like, they do all these inquiries, they barely touch on the action items. It took so long to get residential schools, get the ground radar and all that, and like the numbers and the unmarked graves just keep climbing and climbing and climbing. And that's like, and that's where I had to go back to the Morgan Harris's daughter, her statement, where she's just like, by not searching this landfill, you guys are essentially making another unmarked grave, right? Like,
that's true. Well, if you wear an orange shirt, does it make it better? I would say no.
Yeah, no, but it does like help spread awareness. But then again, like, the sad part about it is, like, I know some people that got, like, their kids got in trouble for wearing orange shirts at school. Like, stuff like that. Like, there's I can't remember exactly who, but I know there was like some pushback for that. Like, and just stuff like that. Like, these are non-violent, very peaceful ways to like state your opinion, right? And to stand up for something that, like, is murdering children okay? No, it is absolutely not okay. It is not okay. But like, for somebody to be targeted because they're just wearing an orange shirt that pretty much states that,
That's right.
That is like, and these are children, right?
Mhm.
There's like, like I had a really big problem with this too, because the community I come from, when he brought up reconciliation, was like, I grew up in Fort St. James, right?
Right.
And my grandma is a residential school survivor, and she's from Takla Lake First Nations.
From Takwa.
And she remembers being taken away, right? So this is, you talk to my auntie, so her mom, right? She remembers being taken away, and we never heard the story. She never spoke about it until the 215 children were found. And it was so upsetting to hear it. And the part that really gets me is one of the people that helped take away my grandma from her safe, loving home and bring her to residential school, where her first day, the first thing she sees is 2 young teenage girls that tried to escape were stripped down naked and then beat in front of everybody.
Oh my.
Right? And then she's little, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the part that really irks me is like, our one of our elementary schools in Fort St. James is named after the person that helped get her to that residential school. He helped barge them over to the residential school, and our school is named after him, David Hoy. So yeah, and to me, I'm just like, they named an elementary school after somebody that helped bring kids like cattle to a slaughterhouse.
Yes.
That's not okay.
Yes. Yeah. No, I've heard quite a few stories, but every time I hear one, everyone's individual too, eh? Everybody's got a story on this, and such a hurtful thing. We need to get you some media attention on your walk. And could we talk again maybe next week, just to touch base? Like we'll do it like when you're resting somewhere, so you don't have to delay.
No, I think as long as we're near good cell service, we could even do it on the road. And then this has kind of been really nice for me. This is my first time wearing makeup in quite some time, and
Right
I got to get dressed up, and
I guess I should have put on some too. I look a little tired tonight, so it's been a long day. So this is just awesome, and what you guys are doing. Are there any other questions? Harsh, you look like you have one.
I have one. So a follow-up kind of question. What's the representation like of Indigenous people in the workplace? Like a normal workplace? Like how's the awareness of like non-Indigenous people of the Indigenous issues?
Okay.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
We just had a really interesting experience. This is like one of the things that fell through, and then we ended up doing this was
Okay, so I got sent to a job, and then 3 days later, this was a LOA job, so they pay us like daily that we're there, right?
Right.
For living out allowance. So we get there, we go to Golden, we pay for the Airbnb for a month, and like 3 days later, they're like, "Oh, we hired too many people." Like me and my cousin Scott made it there. We left this other job to go there, like just to be there.
And they were the
and
only.
we're the only.
They're the only visible Indigenous people there, and there were people that were hired after them as well.
Okay, that's not right.
So like,
was it a union job?
Yes, it was a union job.
So didn't the union? Oh, okay.
The union's been really good with us.
Yeah.
They've been really good actually. So we can't complain about the union, but I think it was just that environment there. Like, but for the most part, when it comes to the workforce, I remember when I got one of my first jobs, it was it was the reason why I got hired out at one of the mines was because the employer, when you work in our territories, you have to have a certain percentage of Indigenous people.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
That's why he hired me.
Well, could it have been you had good skills too? Yeah.
Actually, I was just learning, so I got a lot of my good skills there. I can't really say like I was fresh out of college, and I was slinging chicken and petrol.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, that was one of the reasons why he hired me. And then every once in a while, he'd like give me things to do. And then like three weeks, a month into it, he's like, I've never met a Native person like you. I'm like, oh, you have lots of Native friends, do you? He's like, I'm like, but he like, we got along really well. It's just like, regardless of what, like, there's always that, like, it's that stigma towards Native people.
Mhm.
Like, there's some sort of stigma there that exists. That's not okay. Right. Like,
Right.
like
yeah.
it took him a couple of weeks to be like, wow, I've never met a Native person like you. I'm like, oh, you know, lots of Native people. And he's like, he kind of looked at me kind of funny because he obviously doesn't. Like the only people oh, sorry, I'm tapping my fingers. I do that when I get nervous.
No, it's okay. That's a fascinating story. Yeah. Because,
no, it's,
and I'm not going to toot my own horn at all. I see the racism and stuff, but I come from a different, like my friends and and we grew up in Beverly, right? And Indigenous people and Ukrainians and stuff, we all got along, right?
mm-hmm.
In playing sports and everything. So that's what I hope this country can become too, as well. Plus, we need the police services and stuff to treat Indigenous murders in a proper way, just like Caucasian murder. I hate saying all that stuff, but it's true.
We need to just blur the lines completely of race should not be a factor in anything.
Right.
When it comes to like, there should, like, just because the color of your skin,
Right.
you should not be treated any separate way. Like I've had, there's so many personal experiences that I have in my life. Like I'm absolutely scared to go to the hospital by myself.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we should try to get to a place where the Western provinces get everything, and people from Ontario, we don't give them anything, right? No, I get it. No, all Canada gets it. Are there any other questions? Well, if you could just stick around, Cameron and Charity, and I'll close it out. And thank you so much for sharing your experience. I got to say, is there anything you want to tell the people before we stop the recording? Or have you told us everything? You haven't told us everything, but
I have so much I could say.
That's right.
I guess pretty much is like when policing and enforcement agencies start treating us all with fairness and looking for missing and murdered women and men rather than showing who are more of a priority, like that's when we become more of a nation. Like how do we say that? The racism, the downright racism that's faced by Indigenous people in this country is just, it's not okay. And it's like, that's not only this country, like you said, it's all of Turtle Island. It's the US as well.
Right.
Like,
I hear you. It's a tough subject, man.
Yeah, no, it's like we as Indigenous people have to start our own search parties at this point, like that's, there should be ethnic grouping should not be happening. Like,
right.
In hospitals, in policing,
right.
like
our public services should be equal to all.
Yes, exactly. And there should be like there needs to be some changes in the way that policies are done. Like, I don't even know how to better put it. Like,
I think you've put it good. It's such a serious topic and the issue. Charity, Cameron, good luck to you guys. Thank you for what you're doing and spreading awareness about what's happening to men and women and children, and about our Indigenous brothers and sisters. So thank you very much. So just hang on. Hi, I'm going to leave Charity and Cameron's Facebook links in the show notes. Please help them out if you can, especially with media attention on this. We're going to leave off with the APTN News short video of what is happening to Indigenous men and boys along BC's Highway of Tears. And this concerns Charity's son's father.
Barry Seymour was 32 years old when he vanished from Prince George. He had traveled from his home community in Fort Ware to attend his son's 9th birthday.
Trez and his dad, and that's on his 9th birthday. Cosmic bowling. Who won?
And Tyrez Seymour holds close the last memories of his father.
Me and Mom and I think Grandma and them went to the bowling alley, and that's where we met up with him. And he brought me presents, and we had a good time bowling. And the last time that I saw him was at the Camelot parking lot.
It's been nearly a decade since he was last seen on May 26, 2012.
Every day I used to call up north and talk to him, and when I went to call him, my auntie said that he was lost. I couldn't believe it. She started crying on the phone after she told me that, and I gave the phone to my mom, and yeah, it was a hard day.
I met him through my cousin Amaral. She was actually dating his brother, and she brought me on a family trip.
She just set you guys up?
Yeah, literally.
Seymour's former partner, Charity Rivard, says his disappearance is unlike him.
He was very outdoorsy. Who's this with him in there, Bubs? It's Delaney.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's another one of him hunting.
That was like his favorite thing to do?
Yeah, he was very outdoorsy. Yeah, I love the cowboy boots. It's just like, that's the style going there.
He really wanted to wear those.
Yeah.
The two were high school sweethearts, and the new family enjoyed exploring the outdoors.
He's very traditional. He's super kind. And he's a great father. Spotlight on all these missing and murdered Indigenous men. Barry's not the only one. There's so many people going missing. There's so much young kids. There's so much elders. They're just like, and it seems like it's one article in the paper, and then it's never spoken of again.